All right, the alley oop. It's one of the classic, basketball moves out there that's always been done. I don't really know much about basketball, so I'm gonna sound like an idiot. But um, it's when one teammate throws it up perfectly to this other teammate who's already in the air, and he grabs the ball midair and he just dunks it straight in the net. Everyone goes, "Whoa!" Um, it's a great move. It's a great move. It's teamwork, and everyone likes the dunk. We all like to see the dunk, but the pass, the alley, it's as much as important as the oop. Both need to be handled well, perfectly for the perfect alley oop. Okay, now I say that because I think more films need to have this alley oop type of thing. Particularly scenes. Their scenes are like basketball players, and they need teamwork. And when I watch a lot of movies and films and blah blah blah, I just noticed the scenes are not working as a team. The intro, the scenes before the exciting parts, they're more like, they're like the alley, they're like the toss up, they're setting up the premise, they're important. And then you get to the exciting parts, the reveal, the action, the horror, whatever. That's the oop, that's like the dunk. So I want to just compare and contrast two films and just show you what I'm talking about. And how scenes need to work together. They need to be integrated. They need to be team players together. So, Midsommar and The Forest, both horror movies. They have a lot of differences, but they have a lot of similarities as well. So when it comes to talking about, like how these scenes work together, I'm specifically going to be talking about the intros of these movies. How is the premise set up? How do they introduce these characters, and how do they get these characters into the situation that they end up being in? All right. So, Midsommar, the premise is that this woman and her friends, they end up in a cult during this event called Midsommar, and there's a lot of bad stuff that goes on. By the way, there's gonna be a lot of spoilers, so watch the movies and then yeah, we'll go on from there. And then for The Forest, kind of similar. There's another woman. Her sister's missing, and she's trying to find her in Japan. There's a suicide forest there, and then someone's like, "Hey, let's make a ghost movie out of this." That's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. Okay. Anyways, so how do you set that up? It's a hard task. It's a difficult task for storytellers and filmmakers, because it's like, how do you do that? If you were presented the question, all right, there's a woman that's gonna end up in in a ghost forest in Japan, or there's a woman that's gonna end up in a cult in Europe. How do they get there? If you're asked that question, you're like, you'll be kind of dumbfounded. You'll be like, I don't know, like an airplane, like, but like, how do they get there? How do they get to that position where they're in these very intense environments? Anyways, so let's just see how Midsommar, Ari Aster, did this. So this is the good one, by the way. I don't think I said which one's good or which one's bad, but Midsommar, they did it really well. Okay, so what I love about this setup, this alley to the oop, is that it's a movie in itself. It was slow. They took their time with it. So you have this woman, Danny, right? And right off the bat, it hints at a few things that's going on. So first of all, she's scared for the safety of her sister. She doesn't know what she's going on. She's getting some random emails. And then even in this, it kind of hints at this tension between her and her boyfriend. And the scenes just tell this, it just sets her up. It doesn't even set up the premise for the movie. It sets up just the character in general. And that's what I love about these scenes. They work so well together because it really develops the character. What you get is the tension she has with her boyfriend, and then this fear, this anxiety she gets for her sister. And it's a very real thing, because something that's going on in the intro is that she's talking to her friend. She's like, I don't want to put this pressure on my boyfriend.
I've scared him, though. I'm always roping him into my family crap.
How do you rope him in?
I'm always leaning on it.
And then that causes even more anxiety. So you start feeling for this girl, and it's very real. It was very well performed by the actors. And then on top of that, you also get the boyfriend's perspective. Like, you find out he's a jerk. You find out his friends are jerks. You know what I'm saying? They're not really giving all that great advice. They're not really for Danny at this point. They're just like, man, cut her off, bro. Just like, come on, let's go to Midsommar, dog. We gonna get crazy, bro. Let's go. And you're finding out the boyfriend doesn't really care. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna cut her. But then the audience finds out for themselves what happens. It shows the audience that, Danny didn't just call her boyfriend and said, my sister killed herself and my parents too. No, it shows this horrifying scene that just sticks with you. So the boyfriend's at this bar with her friends, and then all of a sudden he gets a call and he's like, oh, it's her. And then she's crying crazy, and you're like, what the heck happened? And then it cuts to this long uncut scene where you're going from the starting point of what her sister did to the ending point, finding out exactly what happened. It's just this slow motion scene of just horror, and the film and horror not because it was scary, but horror because, man, it was like so real. Like, this stuff happens, and it's just very sad. It's very tragic. And you know, when you see the car, when I saw the car, I was like, oh, she's probably in the car. She turned it on in the garage, and she just, you know, she died in the car. But man, holy crap, that was not the case. That was not, I mean, that's horrifying in itself, but that's not the case. It's worse than that. And then you find this hose, and you're following the hose, and it just trails, and you're just finding out exactly what she did. So the first one got to me because it was the parents. I didn't know the parents were in there, and then they died too because of the gas. They're covering up their heads, and then it just leads all the way down this long hallway where you see her sister just on the floor, and the close up on her face where, man, the hose was masked on, and then you see the email, Danny's email of like what's going on, and then you find out exactly what she meant by that email when she said everything's going dark. And then after that, it cuts to Danny just crying. Like, there's no dialogue. Her boyfriend's holding her, and she just has this very real painful cry. So how does she end up at Midsommar? Basically, her boyfriend's friend invites their friend group to go to Midsommar because it's his family's event. Danny wasn't invited at first, but through this traumatic experience, through everything that's happened and everything that's happening with her and her relationship with her boyfriend, he ends up inviting her reluctantly. You know, it's like out of reluctant like obligation, and that's how she ends up there. And I love it because that's the alley. That's the alley. That's the toss up to the dunk, and then it sets it up for Midsommar. So now you're connected with these characters. You know what's kind of going on, and then it just sets you up for every single scene. So it was a very great toss up. So by the time you get to the premise, by the time you get to the plot and the exciting parts, you are prepped. You are in it. You know, you're just like you're feeling for every single character, every event that happens to them. You're like, man, what's gonna happen next? Oh, that makes sense why that happened, because this, blah blah blah. And yeah, so anyways, bravo. Now let's get to The Forest. And again, I'm just talking about the intro to the premise. So how does this woman end up in Japan at a ghost forest? Here's what they do. Okay, so first, the first like couple seconds, they kind of got you. You know, it shows the slow pull to that forest, and then it's just a very nice eerie feeling that you get. And you cut to a woman being chased, and it's very exciting. It's like, oh, what's going on? And then it cuts to another woman waking up in bed, and then that's it so far. And then it cuts to the airport already, and it's like, whoa, like she's already there. She's already in Japan. And then she listens to her voicemail. So as an audience member, you're already kind of piecing together the clues. But real quick thing, how do we know the situation? At the airport, she just goes on the phone and calling her sister, and then it just goes straight to voicemail, and the voice box is full too. And for me, I'm like, that's a cop out. Again, it's tough to make up scenes that are unique, you know. But yeah, at the end of the day, just like, man, it's just such a cop out. Like, how are we gonna show that her sister's not answering her phone? Oh, let's just do a voicemail box. You know, it's full. You know, that's why. The people love that stuff. You know why? Because it happens to them all the time, so they know exactly what that is. I just feel like it's a cop out. It's very easy. And but then they do this unique thing where it kind of flashbacks. It shows you the process beforehand. But already I'm thinking like, okay, these scenes are just too quick cut together. We're going back and forth. We're jumping time. Like if this was like an action movie like Tenet, like Christopher Nolan or someone, and we going back and forth, I'll get it. It's like, okay, cool. It's fast paced. When you watch Christopher Nolan, you gotta drink coffee and you gotta get some sleep the night before, because man, those movies is tough. But But with this one, we cut in places. We go in quick places, and it's just like, this is a horror movie, man. Horror movies are supposed to be slow. You gotta take it slow, guys. So anyways, 2 minutes in, 3 minutes in, we're already in Japan, and we're jumping back and forth between these scenes. So already the scenes are not working together. It's not good team players. So anyways, and the scenes that it jumps to in the past of how the woman found out, it didn't do much. It was so boring, because one of the main rules in storytelling and filmmaking is show, don't tell. Show them, don't tell them. Because when it comes to stories and movies, you have to think about your audience. You can't just think about your story. You can't just be selfish about your story. You have to think about the audience. So when it comes to Midsommar, how did the audience find out what happened to her sister? There was a phone call and there was a cry. And then they showed the whole scene without saying a single word. You know what I'm saying? Now, how in the forest, how did the sister find out that her sister was missing in a suicide forest? A detective literally called her and spelled out everything for us boringly, as boring as it could be.
The school where your sister teaches, they filed a missing persons report with us. Your sister was last seen in Aokigahara Forest. I'm sorry to say this, but it is a place where some people commit suicide.
What?
That's it. Beat it back, boop, boop. And it's just like, that's so boring. Imagine if Midsommar, that's what happened. If Danny answered her phone from like a firefighter, the firefighter literally said, hey, your sister and your parents, they're dead. She attached some hoses to a car. And how this works is that the gases and the fumes from the car go into the hose, and it actually is not good for people to breathe in. So they breathed it in, and then they died, and they're gone. I'm sorry. I'll see you later. If you're making a documentary, go ahead, use that scene. But this is a movie. This is a horror movie. There's so many ways. Again, it's tough to think about it, but there's so many ways to show us what happened instead of telling us what happened. Of course, you can't really show everything that happened to the sister, because that's the part of the forest where it's a mystery. So of course you can't show her if she's dead or alive, blah, blah, blah. You could show maybe a very ghostly type of dream or nightmare that's very creative and artistic. I don't freaking know. Anyways, let's keep going. And then during this very quick and short time sequence of setting up the Dane premise, she's telling her husband or her boyfriend or whatever, and he's not as insensitive as Danny's boyfriend in Midsommar. He's listening, but he just assumes a lot of things like, hey, that's your sister.
Sounds like exactly the kind of place your sister will go hiking for fun.
And it's just cold. It's just like, cool. I'm literally just watching people have a conversation instead of seeing a relationship form or, characters develop. I'm watching strangers have a conversation. That's what it felt like. And then she literally just says the same premise again.
Apparently they have a forest in Japan where people go to kill themselves, and Jess went into it.
She didn't, it's like she didn't even care. Like, gosh. And I'm like, come on, man, you can't. It's a cool concept, all right? It's a cool concept what you guys have. And you can't just spell it out like that. Again, show, don't tell. And then the husband says a whole bunch of cliche stuff. He's supportive in a sense, but not really, because, if your wife was going to the suicide forest to look for a missing sister, you would think you would go with her, but he's like,
I love you.
I love you too.
It's gonna be all right.
Bring me back a t-shirt.
By the way, I didn't watch the rest of the movie because of this scene. I just watched this literally happened like the first 6 minutes. So I should finish it, but yeah, this intro was just like I'm turning this off. I'm turning this off. Anyways, my concluding thoughts. So when it comes to there's two things here. The scenes need to work together. There need to be an alley-oop between each scene, between the intro, between the ending, between the middle parts, between the exciting parts, and all that. And I think what happens, why a lot of films seem to rush, why they lose their audience, they get low scores, blah, 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 is because people, they have this excitement for the horror, for the scenes they want to get to, for the premise. They're so excited for this scene that they want to show, for the big reveal or something like that. And they're ignorant of the other scenes. So they're showing favoritism, basically, at the end of the day. They're showing favoritism to this scene, and they're putting all their money, all their effort into that. But they're not giving any money, effort, or love into any other scene. Therefore, the movie sucks. Because again, you gave a lazy alley-oop, so there's no dunk. You're just feeding it all into this one scene that you're excited for, which I get. Like when you set up your premise for Midsommar, the cult that's gonna kill people, for the Japanese Suicide Forest, you're gonna see a lot of these ghosts, the revealing of the ghosts. Those are very exciting parts. All the scary scenes, blah blah blah. Every other scene is as important as that scene as well, and I think Midsommar just did a really good job. Anyways, I think for one, creators and filmmakers, storytellers need to go ham with the scenes that you really want to show, that you get excited about, but at the same time put in work for the scenes that you tend not to think about. The intro, the telling of what happened, the boring parts where it's just purely informational. You could do something creative with that, but with The Forest, like, for real, again, I need to finish it, and maybe I'll come back and say, no, the movie was actually great. And then the second thing, which is just a little smaller, is show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. Again, when people get so excited over one part of the scene, they start showing favoritism to a couple scenes versus the rest of the scenes. They just don't care about the other scenes, and when they don't care about the other scenes, it's easier to tell and not show. It's like, oh, how are we gonna show the audience that the sister found out that her sister's missing? Let's just have a detective call her, and he could just explain everything. He can literally explain everything. It's just like, that was the most boring scene ever. It's just like, and that's in your movie. You don't want to have boring scenes in your movie. Like, care for each scene. Learn how to show things and not just tell them. Again, it's hard, but I'm gonna get corny. Difficult things are always worth it. Put time in it. Put effort in it. Stop freaking rushing these dang movies. I love the premise. of a lot of these movies and stuff like that, but I feel like so many filmmakers just rush it. And I hate it. I freaking hate it. And then they just take the concept and they just poop all over it. And I'm like, man, I wish somebody that actually cared made this movie, because y'all suck. Anyways, make sure your scenes work together. Do not show favoritism to one scene and then neglect the rest. Put love in each part. You know what I'm saying? Put love in each part. And also, remember the rule: show, don't tell. Show them, don't tell them. It's way more challenging, but man, it always makes out for a really memorable scene. Great scenes make great movies. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Peace.
Konnichiwa. It's Jess. Leave a message.